Hello and welcome to the Tennessee World Affairs Council's Global Nashville with Karl Dean. I am Patrick Ryan and pleased to see you here today. Today we're pleased to welcome Dr. Sarah Gardial, the Dean of the Belmont University Massey College of Business. We'll be talking about how Belmont, and specifically the College of Business, is part of the global city that is Nashville. First, let me thank Belmont University for the strategic partnership that the Tennessee World Affairs Council has enjoyed for more than a decade now by hosting events of the council and the council's office at the Belmont Massey College of Business. We look forward to your questions as key to our conversation today. You can add yours to the Q&A tab on the Zoom screen, and we thank you in advance for being participants in the program. Let me first present our guest. Dr. Sarah Fisher Gardial is the Dean of the Belmont Massey College of Business. She joined Belmont University in 2020 as the first woman dean of the college. Prior to Belmont, she was Dean of the University of Iowa Tempe College of Business, and she held college and campus leadership positions at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, including Associate Dean of the Haslam College of Business and Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs. She's had leadership positions in national and international business school associations, including president of the NBA Roundtable and conference chairs for the Graduate Management Admissions Council and the Association for the Advancement of Collegiate Schools of Business. Dr. Gardial has an extensive background in business and business education. For over 30 years, she has personally engaged with industry and research, consulting, and executive education roles, as well as creating mutually beneficial partnerships between higher education and industry. You can read the complete bio for Dean Gardial on our website landing page or in the YouTube notes. Welcome, Dean Sarah Gardial.
Thank you, Pat. It's a pleasure to be here, and I have to tell you that we also are very privileged to enjoy the partnership that we have with the Tennessee World Affairs Council.
Well, it's a great relationship, and we're thankful to Belmont for the partnership. Let me introduce you to today's host for the program. Karl Dean served as the 6th mayor of Nashville and Davidson County. He was elected in 2007 and reelected in 2011. Mayor Dean first held public office when he was elected as Nashville's public defender in 1990. He was reelected in 94 and 98. He served as Metro Law Director from 1999 to January 2007, when he resigned to run for the office of mayor. Mayor Dean has taught at Vanderbilt Law School, Belmont University, and Boston University. He has served on the board of the Tennessee World Affairs Council since 2015 and is currently the chairman of the board. Mayor Dean?
Thanks, Pat. And Dean, welcome to the broadcast or the podcast. We're honored to have you. Let me just start off with tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how did you get to Nashville?
Wow. Oh, how far back do you want me to go? I will say that I have now lived in Tennessee more than anywhere in my life. Spent a great deal of time at the University of Tennessee in East Tennessee, and actually 27 years there. But between University of Tennessee and here, I went to the University of Iowa, was in the Midwest there. But I'm a Southern girl, and the South called me back. And I was just really thrilled with the opportunity to come back here and be a part of Belmont. After many years at major state universities, I was looking for some really different kinds of challenges. And when I found out that this position at Belmont was open, it just seemed like a perfect opportunity for me. And that was even before I knew Greg Jones was going to come into town and be the new president. So lots of great things going on here. But it was a coming home in some ways, coming back to Tennessee, coming back to the South. But also, to be honest, being in Nashville has a huge draw for any business school dean. You want to be in a vibrant, diverse, growing ecosystem. You want to have opportunities for students. You want to work with industry. And I look out the window behind me directly at north at the skyline downtown. And I can tell you that I don't know which business school dean would not want to be here in Nashville, and especially at this time.
Right. And so you have from Pat's introduction, you have done a lot in the academic world in terms of business education.
Yes.
All right. So how does one go? I mean, where did you start off in college thinking that you wanted to go into the academic side, or did you go to the business side first, or how did that work?
Well, that's a really great question. I did not start out to end up here. This was never, a long-term or a foregone conclusion. Both my parents were educators, though, so I should have figured out that in my DNA somewhere was someone that wanted to be in education in some form. But I started out doing a marketing degree as an undergraduate student, went into the MBA, and my thought was, I'm going to go work for a corporate entity somewhere. And that was about as far as my thinking was going, was that I was going to have a professional business career. But by a turn of fate, toward the end of my MBA program, I got to be involved in a PhD program or class there. And it was the first time I was in classrooms with individuals that were preparing for a career on campuses. And it really changed my heart once I realized that what that pathway looked like, and that could be something for me. I loved campuses, and I tell people I just figured out a way to never leave. So that particular class convinced me to go on and get a PhD. Fortunately for me, literally before I started my PhD program, one of my faculty members there at the University of Houston called me and took me aside and said, we're going to start working with an organization here in town. So from the get-go, my work, even in a PhD program, which can be fairly theoretical, was done in concert with projects that I was doing in and out of industry with a lot of different kinds of businesses over time. So I wasn't necessarily just the ivory tower kind of academic. From the very first days of my PhD program, it was, how do you think about business education, but how do you make sure that it's moving forward in an applied setting with the community around you?
Yeah. In terms of the academic part of it, would you say that marketing is your primary interest, or has that changed over the years?
I love the marketing side of things because it's about what's going on in people's heads. And I have a strong psychology background. And so that is probably the primary area of business functionally that I get most excited about. But I will tell you that the more I've been in leadership positions, the more my passions have leaned toward, how do you move organizations forward? The leadership realm, and how we bring strong leaders to the tops of organizations, especially women, not surprisingly, is something that is probably where I spend most of my time now versus in the marketing arena that I started in.
Right. And you have been with Belmont now since 2020, is that correct?
Yes. Actually, 5 years ago today, we moved to Nashville, my husband Jeffrey and myself. The tornado came through immediately. We all remember those days. And then Belmont closed the whole campus at the end of that first week that I worked here.
Wow. Okay.
It was a head spinning first week here.
Well, how have you, the Massey School of Business, tell us about that. Who are the students? What degrees are they seeking, and what do you offer?
Well, I will tell you something that may surprise people, and especially even people here in Nashville who have grown up with Belmont being a part of this community since the 1800s. And that is, today, most of our students are not only not coming from Nashville, they're not coming from Tennessee. 70% of our undergraduates, more or less, come from somewhere outside of this state. And I taught 18 freshmen in a freshman seminar class in the fall, and only 3 were from Tennessee. Belmont has a national reputation. We draw students from literally coast to coast, including some international countries. But I had students from Northern California and Rhode Island and Wisconsin and Texas, and as close as Kentucky. But it was amazing that the vast majority of the students who came here last fall did not come from nearby. And that creates a lot of amazing diversity in our classroom. It doesn't have a regional focus. It doesn't have a Southern focus. These kids are from all over the country. And the wonderful thing is so many of them stay in Nashville. Why wouldn't they? Nashville's a wonderful place to be, and they might start internships while they're here. They might start forming relationships, networking with industry, those kinds of things. And once they get here, they want to stay. And so Belmont is a net importer of brain power, leadership into the community now. And I think that's something that we're very proud of. But I think a lot of people may not understand that. And I will tell you one other little bit of this story that won't surprise you at all. Increasingly, we find that their parents are following them here. And I personally would have been horrified if my parents had followed me to college. But I will tell you, I've heard it so many times that I don't even blink anymore, is that now the whole family's coming now that I'm here. And so they end up bringing more than just themselves to Nashville.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I think one of the things we'll talk about a bit more here as we go on is about the relationship to Nashville's growth and Belmont's growth. But
absolutely,
one of the things that I certainly appreciated when I was mayor, and I think it's one of the core strengths of Nashville, is all the universities we have here. And the fact that as the cities become more attractive for people to come to, the universities bring in so many people.
Absolutely.
And companies see that. They see all these young people graduating from schools here, and they're betting they're going to want to stay here. And so that's been a huge part of, I think, of the economic success of Middle Tennessee. I'd put Murfreesboro on the list too with us.
Yes.
That people want to be part of that.
It's so vibrant for the community. I will also tell you that to kind of finish out your question, Karl, is that the undergraduate program is still in some ways the 800-pound gorilla for us. We're closing in on 10,000 students, more or less, and about 8,000 of those are undergraduate students. But at the graduate level, we are putting in place graduate programs that really address the needs of this community, including a healthcare MBA, including an online MBA for working professionals in Middle Tennessee and beyond who don't want to drive into Belmont, regardless of how beautiful the campus is, a Master's of Accountancy program, degree completion programs. We're working with the Attorney Center. We have incarcerated individuals that are online finishing degrees with us. And so we'll get to this. We'll come back to this, I'm sure. We are trying to be very responsive to the needs of Nashville as we look at, kind of the basic business school repertoire, but also what can we do that specifically fits the needs of the Nashville community as it moves forward.
Right. And so does the Massey School has both graduate students and undergraduate students?
Right.
And what's the breakdown on that? How does that work?
So we probably have about 1,000 students, more or less. I'm rounding these numbers. About 800 would be undergraduates. And those undergraduates are across a variety of programs from, the basics of accounting, finance, marketing, management, economics. We also have supply chain. We have hospitality and tourism. I'm going to leave someone out and feel really bad about this. Entrepreneurship is a big one for us, and analytics.
Music.
So we are part of the music business program that's in the Curb College there. That is the biggest major on campus. And 2/3 of our students actually are here for the music business program. That is by far the largest college and the largest major of the music business on campus. Our college is the second largest on campus.
Have you seen, particularly if you going back to the Great Recession, 08, 09, and then COVID, you hear so many parents talk about, and students say that they want to get a degree that's going to get them a job. Have you seen a lot of interest as a result of that in the business school? Is it a growth part of the university?
Business schools generally have a lot of strength across the country on campuses. And I'm not sure how much of that is driven by the students or their parents, because, both of them ultimately are interested in the students getting out and having good degrees. what we see is a lot is that students are putting business together with something else. And so they know that they're going to end up working for an organization, but it may be that they need business skills and performing arts or entrepreneurship and whatever career path that they've chosen for us. And so they may not come here just for a business degree, but they may come here to pair business content with whatever area that their passion is.
Right. And in recent years, just the last few years, there certainly has been, whether it's demographics or whatever, the number of students going to college is fluctuating. In Belmont, I know, and anybody who observes the campus knows, is continuing to grow.
Right.
Do you foresee that continuing? And what do you attribute that to?
You know, I actually do. And that is in light of some headwinds that are coming in higher education, period. Let me just say that demographically, the entire country is going to hit in a couple of years a downturn in the number of students coming from high schools, because the recession that you were just talking about actually leads to a decline in birth rates. And you can flash that forward 18 years and see that actually just the whole market for students that are coming out of high schools is going to shrink. But the other thing that is more cultural, Karl, and that anybody who reads the paper knows that there's been a lot of discussion about the cost of higher education, the debt that students have to take on. Is it worth it? What is the value of education? A lot of criticism of the cost of education as they've risen. And so there are also a lot of individuals who have just decided that maybe they don't want to come beyond their high school, and a four-year institution is just not something that they're thinking about. So nationally, we're hitting a time where I think we're going to see some shrinkage in the pool of students that are coming out of high schools and going into higher education. So who wins and who loses under that scenario? I think Belmont's going to be in great shape. The major state institutions are going to be fine. You might notice that the University of Tennessee announces record enrollments almost every year, and that is true for those kinds of institutions across the country. National brands and schools with large endowments will be able to weather all of that very well. And Belmont, as I just said, is one where we don't rely on the local market to send us our students. Students can come from all over the country to be here, and that helps us create a wider pool of recruits. And so that brand and that reputation that we have, and especially in the music industry, I think is going to serve us very well in the future. I think there's no doubt that the market's going to get soft, but the schools that are going to be really in trouble are schools that are locally or regionally oriented, that have very small endowments. They're very tuition dependent, and even small decreases in enrollment can increase financial tipping points for them. And that's where you'll see that they'll either go under or they will choose to be acquired by a larger institution. I think there's a contraction coming in the market of higher education for sure.
Yes. What, in terms of international business, which of course we're the World Affairs Council, and again, let me personally say thank you for Belmont's hosting us and having us on campus and giving us an office. But what's the level of interest in international business, and how does Nashville's growth as an international business city affect that?
Yeah. You know, I will note the white hair here, and I've been teaching in business schools for a long time. And I remember when you could have a business college, a business degree, and have a class in international. And we just felt like we had to do the nod to the fact that there were some topics like maybe tariffs or exchange rates or things like that were a little bit unusual, that we would kind of package in a class, and we would teach the business curriculum and say, here's one class over here in global or international. Suffice it to say, I don't think we can talk about anything in business without talking global anymore. It's not about having a class or multiple classes. Any topic that you talk about, whether it's finance, whether it's consumer demand, whether it's supply chain, those are all global issues now. We are in a totally globally enmeshed business environment, whether that pertains to the financial market that underpins all of that, whether that's the supply chains where we're sourcing and distributing and manufacturing all around the world, whether it's about global culture, internet, those kinds of things. We are in a global market for business. And here in Nashville, you can be in a company like Bridgestone North America, which is actually affiliated with a global headquarters, or you can be in a US headquartered company, but very quickly you find yourself working with people all over the world.
Mhm.
It is inescapable. There is really just no such thing as having a US business without global tentacles, either on the supply side or the selling side. You end up working virtually with people all over the world. And that's the world we have to prepare our students to go into. And by that token, it's way more than just a class that we want them to take. So things like, well, we do have a degree in international business, and some students absolutely take that in conjunction with something else like finance or marketing or management. We also have a very lively study abroad curriculum here, and many of our students end up doing a semester abroad somewhere. We are in a joint agreement with Queen's University in Belfast right now, and we are sending students and faculty back and forth there. They're kind of a sister university for us there. We are doing global projects around the world. We've got nurses who are going to India, for instance. And so we don't make any distinction. The world that we're in is global. The topics that we teach are global, and it's such a benefit for us to be in a city the size of Nashville, where you are completely interconnected with businesses like, well, think about who's coming here now: Oracle, Amazon, those kinds of companies. These are all global companies in scope. That is the world that we're preparing our students to go into.
Well, one of the things that has always struck me is, we talk about Nashville, and we talk about Nashville's growth, and, people give different timelines for it. And, I would, argue at least certainly by sometime in the 1990s, it was clear Nashville was set to take off or was beginning to take off. And that has continued up until the present day. And one of the things that I appreciated as mayor from 07 to 15 was, I think I came into a office with a city that had a good future, but Belmont took off itself. I mean, I think, Belmont, I say often that during the Great Recession, which I was, I guess, fortunate or unfortunate to be mayor during, was always building. When everything sort of shut down and people stopped building because the capital markets got very tight, and it was the deepest recession since the Depression, Belmont was building classrooms, it was building dormitories, its number of students was increasing, the music program was becoming internationally known. It was a real shot in the arm, I think, for the city. And there was just this energy out there that served the city well. So I always feel very fond of Belmont for that. How important is it to be in a city that's growing and that is prospering?
It's a magnet. I will tell you, in all kinds of ways. It certainly is a magnet for students. It's a magnet for talent for us in terms of people who want to come here and bring their careers here to us, whether it's on the staff or the faculty side here. It's a great recruiting mechanism. If I could, again, take you out on the balcony outside of my doors there behind me, that's the first place that I bring people that we're trying to recruit to Belmont. And we step out there and we look at the city just laid out, and I tell them a little bit about the history of Belmont and why we're here on this hill looking out over Nashville. I tell them about the history of Nashville and how we've come forward together, and it's just an amazing and appealing story. There is a cool factor for sure. Nashville has a culture that is Southern and is music, and it's leadership and cooperation like none other. And I really want to talk with you about that a little bit, because it's not just coming to a city, but it's coming to a city where the leadership and the civic leadership and the corporate leadership are willing to lock arms with you and say, yes, let's do this. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because I think Nashville has some unique qualities in terms of a city its size, in terms of the civic mindedness, and people across industries and potentially even competitors willing to lock arms and say, let's do what's good for Nashville. And what that means for me as a business school dean is that I go knock on doors and say, hey, we've got this idea and our students would like to, would you work with us on? And I hear yes a lot. And that is a defining characteristic of Nashville that is intangible. I don't know how we got there. And I wonder if you could speak to that aspect of Nashville, because, you know, the economics are the economics of the growth and where we sit in the country, all of that. We've got some natural benefits by location and those kinds of things. But that still doesn't, there's a secret sauce that is Nashville that does not exist in other cities, maybe of comparable size. And so I wonder if you could address that, because you've seen that from a leadership position very much up close.
Yeah, I think the intangibles for Nashville, and I think they're real. I mean, these are things that I think are definitely real, that we are have been a very moderate city, in the sense that I think people want to get along. People want to be cooperative and get to a result that's going to be good for the city and is good for as many people as possible. I think that's important. I think part of it is being in the South. I'm not a native Southerner, but I love it here. And I would say that Nashville is the friendliest place I've ever lived by far. I mean, it's a sincere friendliness that I hope we never lose. I mean, that is just, I think that is uniquely, it's Southern, but I think Nashville, because of its sort of its moderation, Nashville's, I think, different that way. And I think that's important. I do think we've benefited from a series of, whether in the political side, going back in the past, leadership that look for answers. And again, I would stress the moderation. I think we've had business leaders who have been civically engaged and have wanted to see the city prosper, and they think it's unique and they think it's a great place to live and they want to preserve that. I think there's a sense of responsibility about the city. I think if you look at the nonprofit community, the same thing exists there. I mean, people want to work together to do the best they can do in terms of what the philanthropic community can do to make the city better. We've had, I think, extraordinary during the 60s and 70s in particular. When you look back, we had extraordinary civil rights leaders came through Nashville.
Absolutely.
And lived in Nashville and were grown in Nashville, who added so much to the city. And then I would add this, I think that, and I don't think this is, I wouldn't put this maybe in the intangible category, but this is definitely a category about the personality of the city, is the increased diversity.
Yes.
The city has become a city of immigrants. People want to be here. They come here like students do, like professors and law students like me come here because they want to be here. But so do people who are looking to live the American dream. You know, I always say that, you know, someone moves to the United States, like Southwest Airlines would say, they're free to move about the country. I mean, they can go to wherever they want to go. And people pick Nashville because they see it as a place where they can, you know, raise their kids. They can live the American dream. They can try to achieve all the things they wanted to achieve. And to me, that's the greatest compliment anybody can ever give you, is that they want to be in your city because that's where they think the future is. That's where they think their kids are going to have a chance to prosper and succeed. So I think that diversity, which, it's hard to date things, but certainly starting in the 1990s, it started slowly and has only increased year after year. And I think the city has responded well to it and overall, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned diversity, and certainly that's true in terms of the immigrant population. I mean, you think about a soccer stadium here.
Oh, yeah.
Soccer is arguably much more popular outside of this country than it is here. And yet, we've got this very thriving soccer club here in Nashville. When would you say Nashville started feeling global?
Well, I think I think there was when I first came here to go to law school, and then I was a young public defender. Certainly during the administration of Governor Alexander and then Governor McWhorter, there was the emphasis and a lot of success around attracting business from Japan and from Asia. That suddenly Nashville looked like a city or a part of that was going to succeed in attracting business and to this place. And you probably didn't. The average person probably didn't feel it in the sense that there were not 20 new Japanese restaurants, or you wouldn't see it on your day-to-day life as much. But that really starts it. And then I think in the 90s, by the end of the 90s, you really felt the arrival of immigrants, new Americans in the city. And we went through some adjustment with that. I remember probably one of the biggest challenges I had as mayor was the effort to do English only in Nashville. And it's a good story because it shows the coalitions and the unity around trying to protect the city. There was this effort, I think it was in 2009, to make English the only language the city could do business in. And there was a referendum on it. And I was worried about it as mayor because I thought, here we are, we're building this, $500 million convention center. We're universities and tourism and attracting people to the city is a part of who we are. Right. If you send out that message, you're shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, it's not only the moral and the other arguments against it, but there's also a very practical argument that I don't think places that are unfriendly or not diverse are going to succeed. And so that was sort of an effort to take us down that road. And the coalition that came together to beat that, I mean, the university presidents uniformly stepped up and said, we get it. Very real to us. This is not good. The Chamber of Commerce stepped up. Unions stepped up. You had the ACLU and you had religious leaders of every faith in the city step up and do it. And we had a referendum, and the English-only effort was defeated. And we're really the only major city in America who was tested that way. And to me, it was this, we haven't looked back since then. That was 2009. Yeah. And the city has just kind of said, that's not who we are. We're not going to exclude people. We're going to be diverse, and we're going to embrace it. And to me, that was like the key moment. And then with the economic success, obviously you see more and more people attracted to Nashville. And it's just made the place more interesting in my mind.
Well, I want to follow up on that and your comments about diversity. We've kind of stopped actually asking the question, is diversity good for business? Because there have been, a couple of decades or more of research now that shows categorically that the more diverse the leadership you have at the top of any organization, the better they're going to perform. On what? On everything. On revenue generation, on market share, on return on investment, all those kinds of things. That diversity of perspective at the top that will really challenge and test decisions and bring different points of view to the table end up being really very good for business. And so, what I say is, you can be on the side of diversity for moral grounds or religious grounds or whatever you want to, but there's a very strong business case as well that says you're going to be a better business if there are more people that don't look like you who are sitting around the table and helping you make that decisions. And I think especially in a global business environment, it's just almost an imperative that you think in those terms. And so creating an environment where Nashville has that feels welcoming to that kind of diversity, I think is key. On the educational side here, I would say we start talking with the students from pretty much their first semester freshman year. You're going to run into ideas and people and differences of opinion that are going to be new to you. How do you open your mind to what other people are bringing to the table and decide what's true for you and what's not? But don't shut out those differences. Those differences are vital. Those differences are rich. Those differences can actually make you and your organization better. And so that's part of, what a four-year education is about in higher ed. But then you throw in the ability to actually study and travel abroad, maybe do service projects abroad, honestly, to do things here in our community with diverse communities. We've got a group that's working out in Antioch with the immigrant community here. It's a kind of a multi-colleges here on campus that are working with that community to help them get a hands up when it comes to climbing the rungs of the kinds of skills that they're going to need for their families and their children's families to be successful here.
Yeah.
We're doing that here in the community. And at the same time, we have, students. I was talking with one last night, a young woman who spent a year post graduation here in Panama, working on a service learning project there, and she's decided to stay in Panama. So that's the kind of mindset, a global mindset, a cultural mindset, a diversity mindset, and an entrepreneurial mindset that is going to serve not only Nashville well, our students well, but our country well as we move forward.
Yeah. I think that is absolutely key. And as that's one of the most important things about the city going forward, in my mind, is the diversity and how, and for a university, I mean, obviously you want that mixture you're talking about, the intellectual stimulation, and you want people to want to be at Belmont, that you want them to want to be in Nashville. And I think it's an attractive package.
Absolutely.
In my mind.
So where do you see us going forward together when you think about the future of Nashville and what the next chapter is going to be? And let's think about what Nashville's needs are going to be and what Belmont's role in that might be as well.
Well, I mean, I think to me, I've always believed, and I still believe, that the number one issue for Nashville is public education. And I think Belmont has been very involved in that, and other universities have too. And I think that's a key area where we should work together, because I think, the city has a genuine commitment, I believe, and the citizens do, to seeing our schools get better. Well, as I look at it, the one thing, if we get public education right, the city's really going to be hitting on every cylinder.
That's right.
And so that, you want, I think, young people, young couples, young people to say when they're looking for a place to live that, let's go to Nashville. Great opportunities there, but also they got really good schools. Right. And you want the corporations to say, or the businesses to say, and the investors to say, let's invest in Nashville because our employees are going to be able to send their kids to great schools and they're going to have great talent there. And that's the key. And so I think that to me, that's the number one challenge. I think there's work that we can do together on some of the big issues, such as transportation. I mean, I think that for universities, I mean, clearly having their students have an ability to get around without having to have a car all the time is important. And, working through those issues, I think, is important. And I think the city has a responsibility to continue to make the place attractive to all these young people to do something with transit. I think that's going to be key. And then I think culturally, I think, Fisher Hall, what Belmont has done there and so many other places, Nashville is unique because it is a creative mecca. People, creative class, however you analyze it, people who have talent want to be in our city. And that is, any mayor of any city would die to be a place where talented people want to move to, creative people,
Right.
whether they're entrepreneurs in healthcare or whether they're musicians or whatever. People like that coming to your city are going to create more opportunity. They're going to create jobs. They're going to create a buzz. They're going to create a desirable place to live. And I think the universities, Belmont, play a huge role in that. And so I'm confident that with the leadership at Belmont and the other universities, that the city will continue to have a good relationship, a strong relationship with the universities. And I hope there is, and I think there is, a general appreciation in government side of it, how important the universities are to the future of the city and to the current success of the city. I mean, you cannot, Nashville would not be where it is without the universities, period.
Yeah.
And so that's I think working together is going to happen.
From Belmont side, I would add a couple of things to that. I think one is, if you look at the problems of the world that are coming at everyone right now, whether it's about environmental issues or disparities in terms of income and opportunities in the country, these are problems that all cities are working on, and Nashville is not exempt from those. We see those at Belmont as complex problems that do not sit in any one of our particular majors or even colleges. Even when you look at something like healthcare and healthcare disparities, for instance, there's a lot of room in there to bring in sociology and law and policy, the entrepreneurial side of things. How are we going to come up with new innovations to solve some of those problems? We have some interesting things going on between healthcare and our performing arts right now. And so at Belmont, one of the things that we're talking about all the time is, what are the problems of the day? And without exception, they are almost all complex problems that require some collaboration across what we do. And universities have historically been some of the most siloed institutions in the country, and people didn't get outside of their own hallways, much less buildings. The latest building that we've built on campus, the Jack Massey Center, which, if you haven't been in it, Karl, you need to come, is built for collaboration, for student collaboration, for faculty collaboration, for us to invite the community in to say, what are the problems that we need to be working on together? And so we're building a culture and atmosphere, and literally a building, that says, if we want our faculty and our students to be a part of the solutions to these problems, that collaboration is key. And the second, so that's the collaboration, I guess, across or within the campus. But I think what I know is going to happen as well is that there will be amazing continued collaboration between Belmont and the city of Nashville. We will lock arms together, and we will have partnerships across nonprofits and government and private corporations and maybe private universities and public schools to solve problems. And
Right.
that kind of atmosphere and culture of cooperation and collaboration is going to serve us all so well. And I think that Nashville becomes a place for Belmont that is ripe with opportunity for us and for our students, and vice versa.
Yeah, I agree. And I should have mentioned when I was talking about all the things that Belmont has done and the universities have done, what Belmont is doing now in the medical area with the new school, that's a significant, as again, if you look at it from a sort of the big picture of Nashville, having another medical school, that's a big deal. It's a big deal for a city.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal for the state. It's good for everyone. We had a question from a viewer that is, how do you perceive, or how does Belmont perceive the presence of a large university like Vanderbilt? Is there a shadow, or do you work with Vanderbilt? What's the relationship like?
I think we have a very complementary relationship. When we talk about competition for faculty or students, there is far, far less of that than you might think. And we have very different missions, is the bottom line. In the world of higher education, there are a lot of different places that you can aim your institution in terms of where you want to make your mark. And Vanderbilt has been and will continue to be very focused on research dollars, very high, that's the wrong word, very research oriented faculty, students that will be going to graduate schools, those kinds of things. And so we would call that an R1 institution, a research emphasis university. While we do research at Belmont, our teaching is emphasized over the research. And so we are going after a different population of students, a different kind of faculty. We're working on different kinds of problems. We don't feel like we live in their shadow. We feel like we've got our own niche playground here in Nashville. We're happy to be here. Vanderbilt's doing something else that is glorious, but that doesn't overshadow what we're doing. I don't think we do in either direction. I think we're great complements to each other.
Good. Well, what would, so as a person who's been in Nashville for a while now, what is your idea of a perfect weekend? What do you want to do, and where do you want to go to eat, and what do you?
Okay. Well, for one, I'm a bit of a foodie. And so I love having access to good restaurants with a lot of different ethnicities. And so there will probably be somewhere in there, like a really great brunch. This is my perfect weekend. And right. And there's a lot of wonderful places for that. But then also the opportunity to do Thai or Indian or something like that, that just really a special dinner. But the music is a part of it as well. My husband is a guitar player. We love live music. And so very often we'll end up at a music venue as well. Many times it's the Ryman. We're still old rock and roll people. And, you know, Ringo Starr was there recently and we were down there with him. And so, you know, the cultural scene here is very big for us. And then the last thing I would say is, we have a lake home down on Timms Ford, and you know, this area of Middle Tennessee is a beautiful part of the country. So getting outside and getting even outside of the city a little bit, and you know, whether that's on one of the lakes or one of the parks, or you know, up on the plateau, just amazing outdoor opportunities as well. So that combination is really a sweet spot for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of the best of all worlds, because you've got a lot of the big city amenities, but you are very short drives away from really wonderful outdoor opportunities as well. And the music is just the icing on the cake for us.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing this. And again, let me just say, since we are the World Affairs Council, we really appreciate what you all do, and we're so thankful. Love to have you back on at some point, and continued success to you and good luck.
You know, I should have said thank you. I should have said a little bit more about the Tennessee World Affairs Council and the kind of unbelievable programming that they bring to us and to our students, where they're bringing ambassadors and visiting people from all over the world here to our steps at Belmont. We thank the Tennessee World Affairs Council for the kind of opportunities that they bring to us and to our students as well. It's been great talking with you, Karl, and I look forward to many more years of good collaboration between the city and Belmont.
Karl and Dean Gardial, thanks for a great conversation about Belmont University and its role as a key part of the things that make Nashville a global city. And again, thanks, Dean Gardial, for the support to the Tennessee World Affairs Council. We couldn't do what we do without the partnership with the Center for Global Citizenship there at Belmont University under your direction. Mayor Dean, thanks again for another terrific episode of Global Nashville. We'll share this with everyone through our TNWAC.org website. We invite people to take a look at the website, join the World Affairs Council, and perhaps click on the donate button to help us continue with programs like this in the future. Thanks again to everyone for joining us today, and everyone have a good day. Bye-bye.